Imagine waking up on Christmas morning to discover that 5 of your children had vanished. Not kidnapped in the middle of the night, not missing from a playground, but gone after your home burned to the ground. Investigators said they died in the fire, yet there were no bodies, no bones, no proof. Then came reports of the children being seen alive, strange evidence suggesting the fire may have been planned, and decades later, an anonymous photograph that reopened the family's deepest hope. This is the mysterious and heartbreaking story of the Sodder children, one of America's most famous unsolved disappearances. Our story begins in the small town of Fayetteville, West Virginia. George Sodder was an Italian immigrant who had moved to the United States as a young man. Through years of hard work, he built a successful trucking business and became well known in the community. He and his wife, Jenny, were raising 10 children. By all accounts, they were a close and loving family. On December 24, 1945, the Sodders celebrated Christmas Eve like countless other families across America. The children were excited about their presents and stayed up later than usual before finally heading to bed. None of them could have imagined that this ordinary holiday would become the beginning of a mystery that remains unsolved nearly 80 years later. Shortly after midnight, Jenny was awakened by the smell of smoke. She discovered that the house was on fire. Panic spread through the home. George and Jenny managed to escape with 4 of their children. But 5 children were still upstairs. They were Maurice, age 14, Martha, 12, Louis, 9, Jenny, 8, and little Betty, only 5 years old. George desperately tried to save them. Every day he kept a ladder leaning against the side of the house for emergencies. But when he ran outside, the ladder was gone. George refused to give up. He decided to climb onto one of his work trucks so he could reach the second-floor windows. He turned the key. Nothing. The truck wouldn't start. He ran to his second truck. It also refused to start. What made this especially strange was that both trucks had been working perfectly earlier that evening. With the flames growing larger every second, George rushed to call the fire department. The telephone wasn't working. The line was dead. A neighbor eventually managed to contact the fire department, but by the time firefighters arrived several hours later, the house had already burned to the ground. The 5 children were presumed dead, but this was only the beginning of the mystery. Authorities quickly concluded that the children had died in the fire. George and Jenny weren't convinced. One detail disturbed them more than anything else. Despite a careful search of the ruins, no identifiable remains of the 5 children were found. No complete skeletons. No clear evidence that they had died inside the house. George found this difficult to believe. Based on his experience around heavy equipment and fires, he believed the blaze had not been intense enough to completely destroy 5 human bodies. The more the family thought about that night, the more unusual details they uncovered. The missing ladder was later found some distance away from where George normally kept it. The 2 trucks that had mysteriously failed both started normally the very next day. Investigators also discovered that the telephone line had not simply burned in the fire. It had been physically cut before the flames spread. Then another witness came forward with an even stranger claim. Someone reported seeing a person throw what looked like a glowing object onto the roof or underneath the house shortly before the fire became uncontrollable. Some investigators later suggested it could have been an incendiary device. Whether that was true has never been proven. As news of the tragedy spread, reports began arriving from different places. A hotel employee claimed she had seen 5 children matching the Sodder children's descriptions on Christmas morning. According to her, they were traveling with 2 unfamiliar adults who appeared to be watching them closely. Another witness believed they had seen the children in another state several days later. Over the years, more alleged sightings continued to surface. Unfortunately, many of these reports were either never fully investigated or produced no conclusive evidence. Still, Each new sighting strengthened George and Jenny's belief that their children had somehow survived the fire. More than 2 decades passed. Then, in 1967, something extraordinary happened. Jenny received an envelope with no return address. Inside was a photograph of a young man. The resemblance to her missing son Louis was striking. On the back of the photograph was a handwritten message that appeared to read, "Louis Sodder. I love brother Frankie." Who sent the photograph? Who was the young man? And what exactly did the message mean? No one ever found the sender. The mystery only deepened. Most families would eventually be forced to accept the official explanation. The Sodders never did. George and Jenny erected a massive billboard near their home displaying photographs of their 5 missing children. It offered a reward for any information that could help solve the mystery. The billboard stood for decades, becoming one of the most recognizable symbols of the case. George continued searching until his death in 1969. Jenny kept searching long after that. Even as the years passed, she refused to believe her children had died in the fire. She maintained the billboard until shortly before her own death in 1989. She never stopped hoping that one day someone would finally tell her the truth. Nearly 80 years later, the Sodder children's disappearance remains unsolved. Were the children truly trapped in the fire, with the lack of remains explained by unusual circumstances? Or was the fire deliberately set to cover up an abduction? Why was the latter missing? Why did both trucks suddenly fail? Who cut the telephone line? Who sent the mysterious photograph? And if the children survived, where did they go? These questions have never been answered. The Sodder family spent decades searching for 5 children they refused to believe were gone. Whether the truth lies in a tragic accident or a carefully planned kidnapping remains unknown. What began as a Christmas Eve house fire became one of the most enduring mysteries in American history. Perhaps somewhere, someone still knows what happened that night. And perhaps one day, after all these years, the Sodder family may finally receive the answers they spent a lifetime searching for. If you enjoyed this video and want to explore more real unsolved mysteries, consider subscribing. And let me know in the comments, what do you think really happened to the Sodder children?